This episode of Obscure Chatter is brought to you by the color orange. As in, I don't think I'm able to see the color orange without being physically ill, like, ever again. Not really sure why. And now, on to the episode. Welcome to another episode of Obscure Chatter. I am your host, Terri Doty. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if it isn't, welcome back, you crazy so-and-so. This is our first episode of 2025. And I gotta say, anytime I say 2025, total tangent right off the bat, as if the sponsor wasn't a clear indication, I keep getting that, like, this is a really bad or really great show from the same people that did Jack of All Trades, Xena, Hercules. They did a show called Cleopatra 2525. And I keep wanting to say 2525 instead of 2025 specifically for this. Such a good intro. Like, in the year 2525, there are women with the will to survive. So, that's what's been in my head pretty much since New Year's. You're welcome. And if you've never heard of this, I highly encourage you to check it out. Gina Torres, which I believe that's how I first learned of Gina Torres, was all those kinds of things. I think she was Aeolus's wife in Hercules. And then it's like, oh, she's in this and she's in that. And then she was in Firefly and she's been in Hannibal. She's been in everything. She needs to be in more. Please, please. Please put Gina Torres in more. God, I hope I'm getting her name right. But, I know it's Gina. But, yes, it's January. And what a hell of a year January has been. We definitely started off on a weird note. And it seems like every day since then has had this challenge. Like, oh, you thought yesterday was weird. Bet. Like, oh my God, could I have sounded preppier? All right, fam. Bet. Like, Jesus. If you're new here, you might not understand just how weird and random this is going to be. Hopefully the last, 3 minutes has given you a good indication. But yes, we're going to talk about stuff, obviously. But yeah, I'm very happy. This is the best weather to be in the booth. Yes, we're back. We're again in the booth. For those that don't know, a good chunk of the time we are in the living room of my beautiful, beautiful home, because the weather's typically pretty unforgiving of my double-walled whisper room, which it's great for recording purposes, not so great for, surviving too long without the door opening. But yeah, it's 20 something right now. And what's so fucktastic, is I woke up this morning at 7, which for those that don't know, I am recording this on January 20th, which is Inauguration Day. It's also MLK Day. And so that means there's a whole slew of emotions to sort with just those two things in mind. But also, my dude's off on, today. So it's like, hey, we're going to sleep in. And we're going to take our sweet-ass time. Just, doing our stuff. Maybe we'll do laundry, da-da-da. Nah, my neighbor decided today at 7 a.m. this morning was the ideal time to fucking get a giant tree removed. And, if vibes could kill somebody, Carol would be very, very dead. Very, very dead. And for longtime listeners of that anime show and other stuff, Carol and I met in a really, in her first full week of the house. I had an anime that I'd worked on in the background as I was just kind of putting stuff together, putting stuff away, figuring out what goes where. And I had written Daughters of Namasane on, which is not a fun show to just randomly have on when company is coming over that doesn't know you or what you do. But it's very, very sexy, very, very insane. A lot of blood, a lot of on camera, whoa, hello. But Carol, I heard Steven in the garage talking to somebody, and then I heard like the garage door open, and then hey babe, and there was just this tiny little lady, retired history teacher, walking in, just wanting to say hi, and I'm just completely deadened to what's going on screen. But Carol wasn't, so she left pretty quickly, and Steven and I just kind of like looked at the screen like, well, that was the first and last time we ever spoke to Carol. So some 15, 16 years later, she, like, if we accidentally get her mail and I like try to hand it to her, she won't meet our eyes. She won't answer the door. I legit don't know what Carol thinks of us, but the brilliance of it is I don't care. And I super don't want to talk to Carol right now because what the fuck, Carol? But yeah. I was also just kind of like, oh God, is this getting older? Because I was like walking around. I'm like, it's so cold outside. You're going to make a fucking crew work. Like it's like 20, it was 22 this morning, but it felt like 16. These poor guys, whatever. I hope they're getting time and a half and all that stuff. Like Steven and I had this whole like, and my dog was so anxious and everything. And then just on... But they just finished a few minutes before we hopped in the booth because I was planning on recording a lot earlier today. I'm like, okay, do we plan around like the sawing and like the mulching and the stump removal, all that? Like, what the fuck do we do, or do I record it? It's been a fun day. But yes, it's very, very cold outside, which means it's actually like perfect being in the booth weather. I will say it's too cold to walk. At least for me. There's probably like at least one like jogger listening. It's like, Terry, really? That's going to stop you? I'm like, yes, I'm a little baby. I'm just a little baby human that can't handle it being so cold. I'll stop that voice. I'm just just a little baby. Okay, I'm done. I promise. But yeah, I'm done. I'm done with my kind of casual outside stroll for now, and I'm bummed. But I'm doing something called Judy Justice cardio, which is I do all of my cardio. That's dancing, jogging in place, and just generally whatever I can for a whole episode of Judy Justice, and then I'm done for the day. Trademark not applicable, I think, but yeah, Judy Justice. But again, I'm recording this on Inauguration Day, later in the afternoon. There's already a fuck ton of stupid, but I haven't really looked at anything yet. I really don't have a good scope of everything that some orange guy is talking about, and I think that's just protecting my peace right now. I do hope that everyone is safe as I'm recording this, and well after the fact. God, I hope you're safe, and I hope that the stupid is somewhat contained, but, you know, memory's a funny thing. I am honestly trying to remember the first Orange inauguration, and I think I was recording. I think it was a Saturday. Pretty sure it was a Saturday. I just remember a march and pussy hats everywhere. Like, wow, 2017 was wild for a very different way. But I'm pretty sure I was recording on a Saturday because I think I was recording interviews with Monster Girls, which was a nice distraction. You know, I was with Jade and the engineer James, and we had a really good day. But then, you know, I left the session, and it's like, what happened? Well, we were having some fun Kyoko Machi Doulahan goodness, and, you know, it progressively got weirder from that day on. And, but yeah, so... Hey, another reason to step in the booth today is just remembering, like, hey, if you're in the booth, you can't focus too much. You can't just be on your phone, I'm sure some can. But yeah, before we get into details about, like, roughly what's been going on since our last episode, which, again, thank you all for your feedback on December. Always love hearing from you guys. If you have any feedback or want a topic specifically covered by moi, reach out obscurechatter@gmail.com, and we'll take it under advisement. But yeah. So before we get into that, let's go over some media that we consumed in January so far. We have been recording a little earlier to just let the episode sit there so it has time overnight to just kind of get out everywhere. So all those links are active whenever I'm promoting it, which has been a godsend for Obscure Chatter as well as Obscure Chatter's, little baby, that anime show. Or you could argue that anime show is the parent and Obscure Chatter is the baby. But good thing is, I'm trying not to think about it too much. Hello. But, yeah, we're going to stick with highlights. I kind of roughly, wrote down, all right, what all did I watch movie-wise? What all did I read book-wise? What did I listen to music-wise? TV shows. I didn't want to try to delve into everything I listened to in music and books because that's a lot. I am very, very lucky as far as books go that I have a local library that is not connected to Libby, and Libby is a great resource for just borrowing books. Books can be very hard to get access to, and I think we know that there are some very stupid reasons as to why. But my local library isn't connected to Libby. But I did find out, if you are a Texas citizen, listen up. If you are a Texas citizen, the Houston Public Library allows you to get a library card through them. And they are connected to Libby. The wait times on certain things are going to be astronomically long on some of them, but it's going to be worth it if you want to save some money and also just help public libraries know that, hey, you use them and you love them, and please tell a librarian that you appreciate all that they do, because damn it, they really need to know. But yeah, so that being said, let's get into just some of the media that we covered. And since we talked about books, I'm going to talk about 3. There is one that I reread. I've read it at least twice, but it's called The Starburst Effect by Kelly Oram. And I really like Kelly's stuff. Some of her, my main big favorite series of hers is the Cinder and Ella series, where, this girl has an online friend. She loves books, and she loves this one fantastical series, and she doesn't know that the guy that she's been talking to through all these forums is actually the lead of the film adaptation of this series. And they fall in love. But then the series also continues with those characters showing up here and there, but the guy's sister and the girl's best friend get a book, and it's a lot of fun. Let's see, I also read Give the Devil His Duke by Anna Bradley. That satisfied my, Regency historical romance. I've been hit or miss on some lately, but that was a good one. I haven't checked out the second book in the series, but the first one started out pretty decently. And one that really surprised me, because it kept popping up as a recommendation, is something just didn't vibe until it did with me, but I Hope This Finds You Well by Natalie Sue. Really liked it. It's not going to be for everyone, and you do have to read it at a certain time, because it's about just a woman that isn't vibing with people at work. And I believe her, she herself is Persian, so it also goes into her family dynamics and just how awkward she is at work. And then one day, she actually has to go to HR because HR finds out that these shitty postscript messages that she's been putting in white so people don't see them. People, I guess, it finally got flagged, and it's some of the most stupid stuff she's ever written. But she finally gets caught, and through happenstance, she ends up getting access to everybody's emails. So she starts adjusting her behaviors based on how she's finally seeing that her coworkers view her. It's very interesting. I really liked it. I fucking sped through it. I really liked it. I'd like to reread it again once I get a moment. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then show-wise, it's been kind of revisiting or continuing on with stuff. Steven and I had been watching Bob's Burgers in the morning, but we finally caught up. So I'm actually revisiting The Simpsons, which I stopped watching The Simpsons at some point as a kid and just never revisit it. But now I'm back. I just finished the Treehouse of Horror with like the Killer Krusty doll and stuff. And so that's been crazy because there are things that I never would have caught as a kid, but also just, oh, right. It kind of reminded me like, this is why you wanted to be a voice actor. Partially, The Simpsons is responsible for that. A lot of great animation growing up, like Extreme Ghostbusters, Beast Wars, so many great shows like made me want to be a voice actor. But The Simpsons, obviously, that's top tier up there. But also been revisiting The X-Files, kind of having like a revisiting Sundays on Fox vibe, I guess. But The X-Files has been a lot of fun. There are things I just fully do not remember. But it's been a lot of fun. It kind of gives me the same vibes, like rewatching it with Steven as we did, because I don't think we've ever watched it together, ever. But I kind of stopped watching The X-Files when, they brought in like Doggett and all these other people. Like, no, guys, y'all have to understand. We're here for the unspoken thing with Mulder and Scully, and we're here for some fucking creepy ass stories. But they always lead to different conversations with me and Steven. But that's been a lot of fun. But it kind of reminds me of us when we were watching Fringe. So it's that same thing. And obviously Fringe came well after The X-Files, but it still gives me those same vibes watching it with my dude. But aside from that, it's just keeping up with other things. We just started the second season of Mayfair, which is, as someone who is obsessed with the Vampire Chronicles series of books and deeply, disturbingly devout in my interview with the vampire series. Yeah, a lot of people are going to kind of be let down how not vampire and not whatever the Mayfair Witches series is. It's very, very, very different. It's a totally different showrunner. And yeah, it doesn't have frickin' Lestat, at least currently. It depends on what they do with certain storylines coming up. But yeah, it's a slow burn, but it's worth it. There are parts that it's like, no. Boop. I'm not a big goo person. I'm not a big body horror person, which I've had several conversations about that on this show. And teeth. Can't do teeth. Like, there's the first episode of season 2. It's like a kid just pulling out his own teeth and laughing. And I'm like, nope. No. Even the showrunner, I think, was a little too casual about that shit for me. But, yeah. And then we're talking about music. I'm listening to a bit of everything. Typo Negative kind of led me down a path of listening to Summer Breeze way too much. But then the original, or what I think is the original, I think there's another band that covers this, is The Summer Breeze by Seals and Crofts. And for a couple days there, it's like, just gonna listen to those 2 songs on repeat. Made a whole playlist of just those 2 fucking songs. Let's go. But aside from that, I've been listening to I Prevail, Papa Roach, Depeche Mode, Portishead, Metric, Gossip, Joy Division, and a huge obsession that I don't know if I've talked about, but Prodigy. Prodigy is a big part of pretty much any day. There's newer Prodigy, but then there's obviously the de facto Prodigy songs, but there are a lot of hidden gems, deep tracks in there that I'm obsessed with. But yeah, a lot of that. And then movies. Steven and I forget what brought this on, but we were talking about shows, and then that led to some weird conversation, and I'm like, well, there's Aladdin. da-da-da-da-da. I think we were just generally talking about Robin Williams. He's like, never seen it. And it was this, what? And so I showed him the trailer, and he's like, yeah, I'll see that. I hadn't seen it in years. And it brought back a couple of weird memories, but this was one of those things where, like, oh, is this why I say that weird or blah, blah, blah? And there's so many stories, obviously, of Robin Williams while recording and, like, the bit of the drama that happened here and there during production and well after that I could focus on. But mostly what I was focusing on watching it this time was watching my husband watch it. And, like, just watching, like, the Cave of Wonders, like, head popping up, and Steven being like, when did this movie come out? Holy shit. Like, yeah, this still looks great. And the color saturation and all that. Amazing. But he really liked it, and that made me happy. When you show someone something from your childhood, and they like it, it's nice. But another thing was that it reminded me, Aladdin specifically reminded me, when I was a kid growing up, my brother and I would walk home from school, and we would just come home sometimes, and there would be a new movie on the coffee table. My mother worked a lot as a waitress at a local truck stop when we lived in South Texas, and she was either there or she was going to school at night in another town. Like, that's how small this town was. So I guess what she would do while we were at school at some point is go to Walmart, and then buy, like, stuff when they came out on release days for tapes. But as a kid, I guess for me, I didn't remember. I'm old, guys. I'm a vintage millennial here. I didn't grasp that whenever we saw movies in theaters, it was probably dollar movies. And so I'd just be like, oh my God, we just saw this in theaters. How did Mom get this tape? She must know someone like at Disney that sent us this or something. I don't know. But Aladdin was the big one where, like, my brother and I came in and we're like, what? Holy shit. And we immediately put it in. And that just became a thing, like, especially Robin Williams movies. I believe she did the same thing with Fern Gully, Mrs. Doubtfire. I mean, not all Robin Williams movies. I didn't come home and be like, oh my God, good morning, Vietnam. What? I mean, maybe, who knows? But wow, it's just, I miss tapes. So collect physical media while you can, because remember, it's January 20th. If the past few days have taught us anything, it's how easily anything digital can disappear without your consent. So we can talk about that more later. But yeah. And the other movie, the big one, was Encanto, which I don't know how it skipped or it just passed under my radar. But I think it came out in 2021. So I think it had a good release and probably a good, like, digital and physical release also, but I feel like nobody I know really talked about it. But I just, honestly, it was through a TikTok that I saw a clip and I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this? This looks gorgeous. And the song choices, everything, oh my God, the attention to detail, like the way they, like, you saw the animation of the water, the fucking, like, detail on curly hair. My God, gorgeous, gorgeous. I'd like to watch that again at some point. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to kind of revisit that stuff. And I think we're going to kind of try to do that as much as possible with this year kind of being so up in the air. Yeah. It's just revisit things from, like, Steven's childhood, my childhood, and just buying as much physical media as you can and supporting your local libraries. Do it. Do it. And then it's like, oh, where do we start? Where do we start with things that have gone on? If you follow me on social media, which is always at Terri Doty, pretty much everywhere. TEEDOTALLY. Or just search Terri Doty. That's typically where I am, but if you followed me on stuff, I've been pretty vocal about, well, pretty much anything. But the big one that is not fun was 2 websites cloning my voice. The first one I learned because a fellow VA, fellow colleague who I've worked with a few times here and there, but we really got to know each other just through social media, Sarah Sikora, she posted about it, about her voice getting cloned. And Steven took 2 seconds to look me up and, yep, and listening to it, it was fuck awful, first of all. And the sound was very fuzzy, which made me think initially, like I saw things below it on 101 soundboards. Be sure to give them hell because fuck you guys. Seriously, fuck you. Like right underneath my name was all these Dragon Ball Breakers thing, and I'm a character in Dragon Ball Breakers. I also adapted some of the scripting on it. Y'all definitely don't have the permission to fucking steal from anybody, let alone, a giant company like Bandai Namco. Which I believe is the person. Whoever it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Bandai Namco. But aside from that, when I listened to it, I'm like, that doesn't sound like the character I did. That sounds with the fuzz. Not to give you a note back, but it's never going to sound as good as me because it's not me, fuckers. Pay me. Don't do anything without my consent and without compensation. It really is that simple. But I'm pretty sure they took it from that anime show. It sounded like a younger me, with that anime show, as I've talked about a little bit before. That's a much less confident podcasting Terri Doty. But the room noise is what kind of gave me the impression that it's from that anime show. Which is mine. I own it. And unless you are Stephen Hoff or J. Michael Tatum, keep your fucking hands off my stuff. And I'm talking about that anime show specifically. Like, Tatum would never be like, by the way, I copied your voice in this video game and we're cool, right? Like, no, you would never do that because that's stupid. So I let my agent know and he's like, well, along with you, let me see what other clients are on there. And Jesus Christ. And I had like a few people being like, oh, hey, reach out here or blah, 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 or do this DMCA takedown, which I looked into it and it looked like I could only get an evaluation without paying money. Maybe I'm wrong, but by the time like I really started looking into like, all right, maybe I should, my broke ass needs to have a lawyer on retainer. Who fucking knows? It was gone. And then, like, the next day, voicemodels.com had voice files of numerous people from an anime I did called Azure Lane, which is also based off of a video game, I believe. Get a lot of love for it. I play 2 characters in it. I play Takao, and I play Hood. Hood is one of my English characters, and very, very prim and proper, and you don't have the fucking rights to use the voice. You don't. Even technically, I don't, because it's from a fucking show by Sony and Crunchyroll. Quit being a dick. God. Ugh. And, just kind of lightly griping about it, like, on my socials, but I posted about it, like, twice on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is where all the fucking AI bros want to really fucking argue. I had this fucking jagoff. I wasn't expecting to get so fucking... And you know what else, motherfucker? But here we are. This guy didn't reply to me, but he replied to Steven's reposting of it, where, like, Steven basically was very, very quick to the point, like, hey... if you are going to use AI can be a useful tool, but not like a replacement of creative, is essentially what he said. And this one guy is like, well, hang on. it does suck that she didn't get compensated, but AI is an amazing tool, and it actually saves, time by, da-da-da-da-da. I don't know who the fuck needs to hear this, but I'm a voice actor because I enjoy the fucking work, and I'm never like, oh man, I can't believe I have to work. If only Skynet could copy my voice and I could just be compensated. Wow, my life would be so... Fucker, I'm an artist. I love the work. It's pretty much the only thing I got going for me at this point, but don't fucking steal my stuff and act like you're doing me a fucking favor. It basically boiled down to, I should consider it a compliment that they stole my voice to begin with. Fuck right the fuck off to Fucktown. Fucky. Fuck off. Fuck off with that. Oh my God, that's going to be like an AI clone. But yeah, where one-on-one soundboards was completely gone, Voice Models has not responded to any of my requests. DMCA clearly is no help whatsoever. And there are other people on the website, including, no, I'm not going to fucking tell anybody else's business out, blah, 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 blah. They know who they are. I'm saying it's really fucked. And you know what? I got enough going on. I didn't fucking need this too, okay? Didn't need it. Fuck. Ugh. Let me take a little sip of water. I'm actually not upset about it. It is very numbing where I'm like, oh, okay. I guess this is happening now. It is interesting, on that same VO thread, we were talking about, or I mentioned earlier, that anime show. It's been kind of wild, still ongoing. I just listened to and edit briefly Chris Ayres' episode of and he never did an official we're at our where we normally record. We did this in November 2010 at a convention, and conventions in 2010, dudes, the shit that we allowed on those episodes is kind of wild. Yes, I edit some stuff out because I don't know, maybe just hindsight did it at us. That's something Steven and I had talked about and never really brought up with Tatum, after the fact. But what we would do after recording just even a normal episode is we'd be like, cool, it was great. And then look at Steven and be like, were there any issues? And he's like, most of the time, no. There was a couple of times where he's like, it stopped recording and I didn't notice. Boo-doo-doo. Or it should have been recording. It said it's recording and it's just fucking gone. Let's figure it out. That happened with an Obscure Chatter episode too. And I actually love the redo that we had to do much more than the original recording. But what we would do is just upload the episode shortly after we did it. And I do wish that I'd talked about it beforehand. Or I'd listened to it before posting about it. Sorry, I got distracted. There's something shiny. But, the main thing is just kind of doing one last listen. I'm a little off mic there, but there's nothing we can do about it. Or, oh, I wish that person had been on mic when they asked this question. There are a couple of those episodes coming up where I'm I'm not looking forward to trying to figure out how to make that a little less awkward. But yeah, it's just crazy to listen to the live shows. We only did a few, and I think the reunion episode that we did well after we quit doing that anime show, that one was wild too, because we were, I think, way too comfortable in a live setting, and live us is different than in the comfort of our own home us. That's just being a human being. I'm not looking forward to listening to that episode, but I am at the same time. But getting back to it, hearing Chris Ayres' episode, it brought back a lot of stuff. Because one, Chris was a phenomenal guest. And he was somebody that I just rarely got to see because Chris was always going somewhere. And he was a big con, just a big con guy. I loved how in the episode itself, he talked about just like his mock combat stuff and just the way he viewed the process as a director, as a actor, and just the fun shit, like hearing him and Tatum really like geek out, all that. But it's just wild to hear him because it's my first time remotely revisiting anything that we've done since he's passed on. And, I wasn't like a super close friend of Chris, but Chris was one of these people that never made you feel like an outer circle friend. He was always very present to fans and all of that, even if it was your first time meeting him, anything like that. Phenomenal man. And I was thinking of the last time I actually spoke to him. It was between one of, I believe, his surgeries or one of his last surgeries. He actually did record some Frieza for a Dragon Ball video game that I was writing and Steven was directing. And when he got on the line, because he was doing it remotely, there was something just so soothing about hearing him. He had one of those voices where you're like, it's like a vocal hug. I don't know. But he got to doing some of my lines and he laughed and he's like, "Oh my God, Terri, he made me feel like the best fucking writer in the entire world." Like I've worked with people that I grew up watching, on television that were like that. Like I cried after working with them, but nothing beat having somebody that you really respected and really knew and tried to like just kind of justify sitting next to. Nothing really beat Chris being like, "Holy crap, I love this line, Terri, da-da-da-da-da," and just, yeah, and him just acting the fuck out of those lines. I miss that fucker so fucking much. And please listen to that episode, and maybe you'll have a bit of the joy that I had listening to it. In between editing some like insane shit that I let fall through the cracks, because oh my God. Remember, I was the main producer on that anime show. Tatum was a host, and he did often have a lot of feedback, but when it came to like cutting stuff, that really fell to me. And Steven was obviously a big force behind it too. But there's some things in both Greg's episode and Chris's episode that I'm like, why the fuck? Or that did not age well shit, where I'm like, oh my God, we gotta cut this. But, yeah. Yeah, it just made me miss that guy. Like been busy lately and, there have been lulls. There are always lulls. That's the burden of being a creative. And you find a way to just be busy during those lulls with other things and not go, why the fuck aren't I working? You just view that lull as an opportunity to explore other shit. That's the way you got to look at it. But I went from like being kind of slow to working 3 times in the last week. Like, like I recorded on Monday, I recorded on Thursday, and I recorded on Friday in 3 different studios, 3 very different projects. And like, man, what a great week. And got to catch up with one of my favorite people and just talk a bunch of shit too. That's always fun when you're like, okay, I know we're recording, but you better not be recording this motherfucker, as we like to shit talk and catch up and like, hey, how are the kids? And like, how's your silly, goofy, beardy husband? And bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh, did you hear what so-and-so did? What? I love that shit so much. But yeah, I don't know. We talked about Chris a little bit too. And just like, I don't know, kind of brought that up because I'd already edited that YuleCon episode. Just like, God damn it. Being in this world is interesting. And sometimes I'm like, man, all right. Chris is one of those people that you're just happy you got to know a little bit in this crazy little life. Like we bonded, and I think I talk about it in that episode. We bonded because Greg, his brother, had already kind of hyped me up because Steven and I had like a zombie reception, and he was a big fan of horror, so Chris would always throw out like horror recommendations. I would throw them back, and he's one of the only people I knew that actually liked the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. And he explained to me why, and it fully made sense. It was really fun to talk about. Like, he was a great guy, and I really, really fucking miss him. Like, where do you go after talking about such a great person? There was something that happened that is worth discussing. Something that happens as a pet owner. Sometimes it's where your pet fucks up majorly. Like, talking about just kind of like I was talking about the inauguration earlier, in 2017. I was also recovering from a dog bite. Around that time too. I was bit in the fucking face. And at no point did I blame the dog, because we have to remember, these are just wolves that decided it was nice that we fed them. But dogs are often more unpredictable than cats. Dogs and cats, blah, blah, blah. My dog, Willow, has always had an issue with her prey instinct. That was something that came up whenever we adopted her. That's why they kind of had to get rid of her. It was this couple that we met through Pet Finder. Willow was one of 3 dogs, and they were expecting their first child. And just at some point, Willow started just really not being cool being in a multi-dog household. And you could tell it was really stressing out the couple, which, I mean, just being pregnant and having to deal with just being pregnant is one thing, but also dealing with like a fucking diva dog that's trying to attack your other 2 dogs out of nowhere, who was fine until a point. They let me know. They're like, yeah, you gotta have no other dogs. And we had mentioned like our dog Zoe had a problem with that stuff. Zoe was a little insane, but Zoe was from the fucking streets. Like, I've seen things, motherfucker! Nah! Like, that's the kind of voice we gave her all the time. Like, you don't fucking know me! Let's go! But Willow is very much a pampered princess, and it's just like, hey, guys, I'm crazy. You don't want to fuck with me. You don't want to do it. Being a voice actor is really annoying as a pet owner. As the partner of a pet owner, I don't know. Steven's very much like, is that Willow's voice? I'm like, it is today! But a couple days after Christmas, you have a routine for your dog. And I see, Steven took Willow out for her last, walk of the night, make sure, she does her whiz and maybe poops before, like, we all go to bed. And so we don't wake up to, like, a giant pile of shit in the kitchen. It is nice of her to always do it in the kitchen versus like the living room or the den with carpet. Who knows? But I got this like beating on the kitchen window, and I'm hearing all this shouting, and I go out, and Willow's in the process of killing a cat. It's horrendous. Steven's doing everything he can to try to get her off of the cat. Cat's fighting back. And then there's just a snap. And she just immediately goes back to being Willow. And it was in a darker part of the yard where we don't have a lot of overhead lighting. So we get flashlights and like, oh, fuck. To me, it felt like, honestly, like being in a Lifetime original and like your kid being like, I messed up. I'm like, Abby fell down, down the well and we don't know what happened. Like, where is Abby now? Like, I'm being over dramatic because it was really sobering. Like, oh, fuck. And we're like, is it a feral cat? Is it someone's cat? We got Willow into the nearest door of the house because she was covered in blood. Like, got her into the garage and then just kind of assessed the damage. Like, oh, fuck, what do we do? And, like, I ended up calling, like, animal control to be like, do I need to, like, report this? And they're like, keep an eye out, da-da-da-da-da. Is she being aggressive toward you? We're like, no, immediately. Like, no, because she wasn't. Like, no. And, like, being like, do we need to bring her in? Anything, like, just keep an eye on her. And also just kind of hearing, like, hey. Like, yeah. She's a dog. Like, cut yourself some slack. She's a dog. Remember, she didn't do this because you're a bad pet owner or anything like that. It's more common than you think. I know it sucks right now, but cut yourself a break. Keep an eye on stuff. Maybe crate her overnight for safety. Wash all that stuff off. Be very, very careful. Have a good night. And so we spent a couple of days, like all of the next day was cleaning. And her just kind of looking at us like, hi. Like, hey, dude. I'm like, I feel like you guys are mad at me. Like, I am. I don't want to be because I know you're a fucking dog, but like, I am mad. And then on New Year's night, she stopped eating and she'd swelled up a lot. So that's when we finally took her to urgent care and we told them everything. And they're like, okay. Yeah, it was very much like talking to animal control. Like, hey, she's a dumb dog. Like, all dogs are dumb. She's just being a dummy. Like, it's okay. So we got her on anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, which she's still taking. That dog is really, really, really a fan of peanut butter now because it's the only way she'll eat those fucking pills. She doesn't do the pill pocket or anything like that. But yeah, no, we felt pretty bad. And we've checked in with the neighbors and like, okay, it must have just been a feral cat, But I don't want anybody to be walking around going, have you seen my cat? And me being like, look over there and just fucking bolting. But if they did, like, if it ended up being that way, it'd be like, all right, let's deal with the fallout. But it's been a couple weeks now and we haven't heard anything. So that was New Year's night. And then, like New Year's, on January 2nd, I was taking a shower. I needed like a long shower to just decompress from like the drama, all this stuff. And the shower head broke while I was just my soapy naked self. And I just kind of like looked at the broken faucet in the bathtub. I'm like, sure. And it's just been a wild ride ever since. Thanks, January. Obviously the winter weather and the California fires, which checking in with friends, family, and just people that, pop up in your life here and there, like checking in with them, seeing the devastation that's fucking gone on, all this stuff. It is wild for people to be like, yeah, no, California fires, winter weather in Texas, blah, 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 blah. When is this episode out? Like, guys, we have to, we can't be myopic about that stuff. We have to be a little more understanding and understand delays might happen. That's kind of like on a very low priority at that point compared to saving people, hoping, that they have some kind of home to come back to. And if they don't, helping them you know, come to terms and rebuild. Like, I think that's more important than delays in any kind of production or anything like that. And I'm not talking specifically about anime. It's just crazy to be like, well, what about award season? Like, what? Yeah, it's been a lot, you guys. January, like, again, like that, all right, bet. Like, why? I didn't make a bet. I just made an observation that 2025 is going to be weird. Remember Cleopatra 25. There are women with the will to survive. But, yeah. So, January's been interesting. I'm sure February will have its own sack of potatoes. If it's any indication, I am really curious about what's happened today, and hell, what's going to have happened between the recording date and the release date. Remember, recording this January 20th. If this gets released on, on the next weekend, and Zorp is taken over, I didn't have that info when I was recording it. All hail Zorp. I guess the last like big thing, and that'll kind of like turn into us winding it down, is just talking about like social media. A lot of, I posted here and there about like TikTok. I was kind of really more involved on my TikTok than I became, because I was sharing the most random stuff, sharing like clips and voice clips and all of that. And then I just got really paranoid about people stealing my voice. Who knew that it would be the podcast and my paid work that was going to do me in, not social media. But yeah, but I do really like being on TikTok because of, hell, just, that's how I got into some shows like Severance and Doom Patrol. That's because I saw clips. Or Encanto, as I was talking about. Yeah. Clips on TikTok. Should people be watching like whole episodes of stuff on TikTok? No, because that's just secondhand, or I was going to say secondhand piracy. It's just piracy. Come on, guys. Be cool. But there is this kind of thing, as I'm posting about stuff, I think it kind of deters a lot of people that might know me from like my voiceover work to be like, why aren't you talking about your voiceover work? Because I'm multi-layered. I typically really don't talk about my work that often on social media because I still want it to be fun. I don't want social media to be work. But if you are going to make social media work, I think you should get paid for it. Which is a wild thing, like, hey, why aren't you doing all of this? And like, because it's work. Podcasting is work, and people are always on to me to get official sponsors, not made up ones. But they'd have to be the right sponsors that don't dictate my content. And I don't know of a sponsor like that exists. But if I could get paid for doing the podcast, that would be great. But until then, I'm going to do and say whatever I want and say fuck a lot when talking about my voice being cloned, all of that. But yeah, I mean, I learned coding in its most basic form through like MySpace. When I was in college, I needed an invite to join Facebook. I'm, again, vintage millennial. It's been jumping from social to social to social. And it's like, why bother? I really love keeping up with friends and the occasional family member. Social media is the reason high school reunions aren't really a thing anymore, because you don't have to wait until your 10-year, 20-year. You'll be able to see if that guy that put a sign on your back freshman year is living his worst life. And spoiler alert, he is. But, we still need social media. It's also incredibly freeing for a lot of friends that are terrified of the world or can't go out for whatever reason. Social media is a great thing for that. It's like, well, okay, what happened to like offline meetups? Offline meetups are not going to go away, but it's more inclusive. It's the same reason why, virtual, like, working and connecting virtually shouldn't go away. It helps productivity. And sometimes just Like, I've got my girlfriend group, You Can't Sit With Us. We talk about the dumbest shit imaginable that we wouldn't just organically, like, talk about here and there. We just kind of catch up every couple of days. It's great. And with all the things going on, I like staying informed about what's going on without it being packaged content that someone, many, many tiers ahead of above me, according to somebody, has decided is relevant. I want to know just what's going on and be able to determine what is and isn't worth learning about myself. So as far as what I'm posting and the frequency in which I'm posting it, it's never going to strictly be about work. And I think if people aren't as vocal, I think we should leave them alone. Like, we never know what somebody's going through offline. We never, ever know that. So just be respectful. Try not to hound people that aren't posting or posting the things that you think they should post, because that's just weird. And so, like January 20th, I'm living through the past 48 hours, which was TikTok being banned. And then 14 hours later, TikTok being back. And TikTok being weird. It went from like, oh, hey, yeah, no. Like, no social media is perfect. But it went from like, hey, the algorithm gets me now, blah, 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 to like, whoa. It's like this AI being like, hello, friend. Like, what's weird about you? Nothing. Sorry, did you say nothing? Come here for a second. I'm good over here. Whoa, you stay over there. It's weird. It's really, really, really weird right now. So by the release of this episode, who knows what's going on with TikTok? I know right now it's really, really weird. And people that aren't on TikTok, like, wow, this is what we care about. Like, well, I mean, TikTok created how many jobs for people? Like, well, now you guys can get a real job. Like, y'all don't know. TikTok helped out a lot of fucking people. Creatives, and then just a lot of hunters, just a whole, I don't know why I grasped onto hunters first, but like a fuck ton of people, be it, creators of products versus just booklets to help people sew. I did that. Or my father-in-law gets a lot of stuff off of TikTok Shop, and also just like the creator program. That was great for a lot of people too, which a lot of people or other people is like, wow, okay, so influencers, like they're worried about their money. Like, yeah, do you think most of these people that have verified check marks and stuff are doing it out of the kindness of their heart? No, they want to make fucking money. Just like me. Stop copying my voice. But TikTok was also kind of the last, social media from one of the big names that wasn't, controlled by a weird group of people that are just weird. So yeah, social media. I'm going to keep posting doodles of my little ghosts and bitching about my voice being cloned and occasionally putting a scenario that may or may not have happened in real life. You're welcome. And remember to follow me on all of those. Not really active on Twitter, X, whatever. Am very active, and please keep up with my Instagram if you do have one, because that's where I post a bunch of my links to help people affected by the California fires. Oh my God, why am I blanking? I post a lot of stuff on there, just on my stories that disappear after 24 hours and very rarely make it to the feed. Blue Sky's been great. I really don't do anything on Threads that isn't done anywhere else. And you can follow me on Tumblr, sure. It's just going to be a lot of GIFs mostly, but you can do that. And Obscure Chatter's also on Blue Sky and X, and so follow them on that. You can check out any episode of Obscure Chatter and the re-release of that anime show, TAS Rewind. We are churning through the episodes 1 week at a time, and we will be going through that until the end of August, I believe, of this year. So you can check us out through obscurechatter.com, Audible, Amazon Music, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. Obscure Chatter is the YouTube just for that. But for that anime show, check out that anime show podcast on YouTube. I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode and that it's a highlight of whatever day you decided to give this a listen. These are weird times, and there's really nothing I can say to you that's going to make a shitty situation less shitty, except perhaps to let you know that I love you guys. Maybe that does something, and I appreciate you listening. Get lost in the media. Get lost in your comfort things. Whatever you can do to minimize the anxiety, I encourage you to do that. Until next time, read good shit, watch good shit, and try, for the love of God, not to be a shit. See ya.